Hello, my name is Carla, your digital presenter for today's event. Before we dive into the exciting and informative content we've prepared for you, here's a quick disclaimer. I'm actually an artificial intelligence, AI, designed and programmed to assist with sharing valuable knowledge and resources. I am here to provide evidence-based, up-to-date information and guidance, and will be sharing real stories from my colleagues at FND. Here at FND, we value honesty and transparency in all our interactions. We at the Family Network on Disabilities believe that the incredible advancements in technology, such as AI, can significantly enhance our ability to provide families with the resources, support, and information they need. All the information shared in this training comes from the dedicated team of experts at FND who have years of experience, rich understanding, and most importantly, a deep passion for supporting families just like yours. Family Network on Disabilities began in 1985 by a group of parents of children with disabilities who came together looking for mutual support. FND is a grassroots organization for persons with disabilities and their families that is family-centered and family-driven. What makes FND unique is that the majority of our board members, our management staff, and program staff are either individuals with experience with a disability or have family members with a disability, which gives us the perspective of empathy and compassion for the work that we do. Before we begin, I'd like to share a little bit about Family Network on Disabilities. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization helping families across the state. We're funded in part by the U.S. Department of Education and the U.S. Department of Health through the Health Resources Services Administration. We use all that funding to provide information, resources, and support, and training to families, educators, professionals, and providers throughout the state. We do not charge for our services. At this time, we would like to make a disclaimer that we at FND are not attorneys, doctors, or mental health professionals. We do not offer legal or medical advice in our workshops. We are happy to support you with information, resources, and support. We use research-based information in our training and materials. Today, we're going to be sharing an overview of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So let's get started. There are 7 million students and public schools who are served in some fashion under the Special Education Services, which of course is completely under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So there's a whole degree of variation. We have individuals that are served for a DHD, for cerebral palsy, for intellectual disabilities. There's just so many things, it's such a wide span. It includes students that have orthopedic issues, intellectual issues, autism, Down syndrome, developmental delays, blind, deafness. This is such a wide group of individuals and abilities, and so it is really important that we have this federal act that looks at all of the different facets necessary to provide this education. When we look at it cumulatively, it is 14% of students, and of course we know that there are more students that are out there and they need to be identified. When we say that 14%, we're just talking about the ones who are currently being served under I.D.E.A. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act is the nation's federal special care education law. And so what that means is it being a federal act, it supersedes everything. I.D.E.A. is responsible for the funding, the provision, and all of the special education services that fall under that. We also receive our grants that allow us to help our families for free under Part D of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act because it was recognized that for parents to have that parent participation, which is a big component of I.D.E.A., they had to have information and resources, and they had to be knowledgeable about what they are doing, the processes they're involved with. Part D includes provisions related to discretionary grants. Through that, HIT funds parent training and information centers. Sometimes parents in the very beginning just need somebody to talk to because they're willing to listen, but they don't have that experience and that knowledge base. If there's something that's happening within your school, or they're not doing something on the IEP or something just feels off, we can also do research on what we call technical assistance papers. And those are directly again from the Office of Special Education Programs and from the Florida Department of Education. Parent Training and Information Centers, PT is. We serve parents of children with disabilities of all ages, birth to 26, and of all types of disabilities. Just as the individuals served under I.D.E.A. is totally a varied and diverse group of individuals, so are our clients. We serve everybody that comes to us needing information from SLDS, your ADHD, your dyslexia, all the way up to more complex needs to rare conditions, sometimes it can be hard to find information. It's something that doesn't occur frequently. FND is here especially trying to help underserved parents, so we are here to help individuals that sometimes there is a lack of equity in our evaluating systems, and we know that certain populations of children can be inappropriately identified. We are here to help with that, and we want to help to end that misdiagnosis that occurs with some of the kids. We are here to help you understand what your rights to dispute resolution are, and we play an important role by explaining the benefits of these methods. We are also there to give you referrals to other people who are also going to be knowledgeable and help at no cost. For example, CADRE, the Center for Alternative Resolution Disputes in Special Education. So we are here to help. FND listens to what's going on, and we give you all of the different ideas and all of the information so that you are making the most informed decisions that you could possibly be making. FND serves individuals from 0 to 26, but I.D.E.A serves individuals from 0 to the age of 22. So I know there's an education law that has 0 to 2 in it. Yes, that's what we call early intervention for infants and toddlers, birth through 2. We do have individuals that are diagnosed at birth or they're diagnosed in that first or second year, and we want to be providing these services as early as possible when we're noticing delays or signs of disability. So different agencies across the country can administer these Part C services for infants to 2, but in the state of Florida, that runs through the Early Steps program through Children's Home Society. Part B is the special education and related services, ages 3 through 21. Once they turn 3, they are eligible, at no cost to the families, to go to a preschool early education program, and there they're going to have special education teachers, there will be aides, there will be therapists coming in and out and contributing ideas. There will be access to behaviorists, there will be all of that, and again, that's at no cost to families for the hours of the normal school day. It does go all the way to 21 because our individuals that have more severe disabilities and need that extra time in school. There is a process by which we can defer the graduation at 18 and keep them in school up until their 22nd birthday. These are the 6 major principles of the I.D.E.A, and these are what we're going to be breaking out of and doing the different sessions with. Our first one is the free and appropriate public education. Our second one is appropriate evaluation. The third tenet is the individualized education plan, least restrictive environment, parent participation, and procedural safeguards. We're just going to do a very brief description of each of these tenets. These are again the 6 major tenets of I.D.E.A. Back when this law was first founded, people were really looking at what these kids need. How do we provide them an education that is suitable, that is actually achieving education in these kids? How do we integrate them? How do we bring them back into society? Because we were coming out of that time where they weren't being educated, they were possibly being taken from the parents, there was a lot of institutionalization going on. And so every one of these tenets is very, very important to stay out of where we were before. So free and appropriate public education. First and foremost, I.D.E.A mandates that all students get a free and appropriate public education. So when we say appropriate, it means that it is in some way designed to meet their needs and not because the label of the disability, but because of the way that their disability expresses within themselves and in the classroom environment. That's how we determine what is appropriate, and it's individualized to that student. Our next tenet is if we're going to be providing a free and appropriate public education, we need to know what we're working with. There are large bodies of knowledge and there are evidence-based practices, and if we know what we're working with, then we can tailor that education so that it is appropriate to that child. The evaluation process determines eligibility. There will be a request for initial evaluation, and that can be initiated by the parent, the state, or local educational agency. Parent consent is required. So if you get an outside referral, they cannot legally do it without your consent, but if there is concern about them possibly having issues in one of the domains that we work with in ESC, then we should be identifying and we should start working on that as soon as possible. The purpose of this evaluation process is to gather information, and the evaluations should be done within 60 school days. They can say yes or no, but they have to do it in writing, they have to do it within 60 days, and they have to explain what their reasoning for coming up with that was. So just know that 60 days. Any kind of requests through the school should be done in writing. It should be done through email preferably, and you can send one email and you can send it to the teacher, you can send it to the principal. Once they're involved in the ESE programs, you can send it to the district representative who will be coming to the table for the IEP. That way, everybody is on the same page and everybody is receiving this request, and you're starting that official countdown. In Florida, special education is called Exceptional Student Education, or ESE. A child qualifies for these services once they meet one of the eligibility criteria in the State Board of Education rules for ESE. Here are actually 13 qualifiers for ESI in the state of Florida, and this again is in line with I.D.E.A. because, as we said, the state of Florida has to do what I.D.E.A. prescribes for our exceptional student children. Our qualifiers are at SD autism spectrum disorder, deaf or hard of hearing, dual sensory impairment, so deaf-blind, emotional behavioral disability, EBD. In the state of Florida, this is an odd one. We have gifted through ESC. Now, this is not in the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. This is just how the state of Florida has chosen to administer their gifted programs. So if you move to another state, it's very likely that gifted would not be provided through the ESC departments. It would perhaps be its own department. We have the hospitalized or the homebound. We have intellectual disability, which can cover all sorts of conditions. It's just if they have that cognitive and intellectual disability. Language impairment, OHI other health impairment, and that can again be a big swath of things. And then with that one, we're getting out of the disability realm as we think of traditional disabilities. But if you have a child and they have a long-term health condition and they're missing school, they're doing therapies, then your child should be served under an IE so that we can explain when they're late or missing school. There's a clear reason for it. Any kind of health impairment that is going to affect that child in the school setting is again something that we need to be considering, and they should get that IEP, that individualized education plan for that. So another federal qualifier is the orthopedic impairment, specific learning disability, SLD, and that's kind of a catch-all for different types of processing disorders. Speech impairment is a qualifier, traumatic brain injury, and visual impairment. And this can be either being completely blind or being partly sighted. So even if they are partly sighted, they can see okay, but they do better while sitting at the front of the class. They do better when the print is a little bigger. Is that enough for ESC services? Absolutely, because those can be provided in the regular education classroom, and it will help that kid. And it doesn't matter how many needs or how few needs that they have, we want to be meeting those needs. The Individualized Education Planner, IEP, is a written agreement outlining the services a school will provide to help a child meet their educational needs. It is tailored to the individual child and describes everything done beyond regular education for the entire school year. An annual IEP is required, usually created at the end of the school year to assess growth and progress and to plan for the upcoming year. However, parents can request an IEP meeting at any time by notifying the teacher, principal, and staffing specialist. Such meetings might be necessary if a new behavior arises that needs addressing in the IEP, or if a private therapist recommends specific accommodations, like headphones or a weighted spoon. Parents can submit private evaluations and recommendations to the teen for consideration. Signing the IEP indicates attendance at the meeting, not necessarily agreement. If parents disagree with the IEP, they can note this next to their signature and request another meeting. An additional IEP meeting may be needed if a child makes significant progress outside the school year and their goals are no longer relevant. Goals should always reflect skills that the child needs to develop for success in school and life. The least restrictive environment. So this is a critical component of I.D.E.A. Let's go over a quote and then explain it. To the maximum extent appropriate, children with disabilities, including children in public or private institutions or other care facilities, are to be educated with children who are not disabled. And special classes, separate schooling, and the removal of children with disabilities from the regular education environment only occurs when the nature of the severity of the disability is such that the education in regular classes with the use of supplementary aids and services cannot be achieved. They have to try to accommodate that child. They have to try to modify the curriculum if that's what needs to happen. If they have an intellectual disability, they have to bring in support staff. If they're nonverbal, have they had a speech therapy evaluation? Our first thought can't just be, let's dump them into the ESC classroom. We have to do those evaluations. We have to use those evaluations to figure out exactly what they need. And so on that IEP, it's going to check how much of their day and percentages are they spending in ESC. because there's different kinds of models. Some people spend all day. Some people get pullouts. Sometimes the ESC teacher will come to them and work with them in their classroom, maybe another friend too. So there's a lot of different models, but we have to show exactly what we are providing and how much and in what environments, because we're not just separating these children. Inclusion is the nature of I.D.E.A. Parent participation. So again, back in the day, parents could lose our rights if we had a child with disability. They could be taken from, they could potentially remain with parents, but there's no liability to educate them, and there's nothing that could be done as parents. So I.D.E.A., the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, is completely written with parent participation and rights in line. And so that's why we are here. That's why we do these kinds of trainings. We can do them individually. If you don't understand and you can't participate, then that is not in the spirit of the I.D.E.A. Lastly, we have procedural safeguards. So if you're having a dispute, say you had to write on the IEP that you are not in agreement, maybe you have a wonderful IEP but you're not getting the services that are on there. Maybe your child's in middle school and all of their teachers are doing the accommodations except for one who's like, I'm just not going to do that. Whatever the case may be, you have procedural safeguards, and that takes it out of that IEP meeting and it brings it into the realm of alternative dispute resolution. There are many options under alternative dispute resolutions, and those are your procedural safeguards. We are going to be breaking down each one of these concepts that we kind of briefly spoke about today, and we're going to talk about them a little bit more in depth and giving examples of how this is used, why it's used, why these things are important. We want you to know I.D.E.A. as well as we do, and through that, you will find your power in advocating for your child, and you'll teach it to them so that they become a self-advocate later, and that is the design. Here you can see our FND family. These are the programs housed under the Family Network on Disabilities. Each program provides a unique service to a specific population. There are 3 PTA programs funded by the U.S. Department of Education through the Office of Special Education Programs. POPN serves North Florida, PSN serves Southwest Florida, and PEN serves Southeast Florida. The Family Star program, funded by the U.S. Department of Health under the Health Resources Services Administration and supports families of youth with special health care needs. FND also has a Special Needs Trust where we provide families with information regarding creating and supporting a special needs trust. We also do programming specific to fathers raising children with disabilities. Here you can see links for multiple downloadable resources available in various languages. You can also see some of our social media platforms. We have various pages on Facebook addressing the needs of different populations and our programs. I invite you to check out our website at www.fndusa.org for the hundreds of pages of resources and invaluable information that you can access and download at no charge. You can reach us to help you and your family by giving us a call at 800-8.2.5, 5.7.3.6, and letting us know your needs. You'll be assigned to a staff person who can support you. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Visit our website for valuable resources and more information. We want to thank you for spending this time with us during this presentation. We look forward to hearing from you.